Well, what a brilliant innings from Martin Guptill, and led by his brilliant double century, New Zealand have posted a huge total of 393 in front of West Indies to chase in the fourth quarter-final at Wellington. Guptill was, remember, dropped early on by Marlon Samuels, and that proved to be too costly for the West Indies. Captain Brendan McCullum was not so lucky though, getting dismissed after making just 12 runs. Kane Williamson and Guptill then took the team to 89 when Williamson was dismissed by Andre Russell for 33. Martin Guptill then brought up his second ton of the tournament of 111 deliveries. He was well supported by Ross Taylor at the other end, who was out after scoring 42 runs. Corey Anderson made 15 while Grant Elliott contributed with 27 runs. But powered by Guptill's massive 200, New Zealand powered to 393 runs against the West Indies. A massive score. This is the highest score by an individual in a knockout game, a highest individual score in the World Cup as well. And Martin Guptill played a brilliant innings today. Remember, he was dropped early on in the innings by Marlon Samuels. It was just at the start of the innings, but from there on there was no looking back for him. He powered this 100 through 11 sixes and massive fours as well. A lot of his runs came through boundaries and sixes, and Martin Guptill scored all over the park. Well, let's go across to my guests straight away. Andrew Simons and Nikhil Chopra, you both seem to be bowled over by that innings as well. Andrew, I will start with you. You were saying that it's not just that he hits those boundaries and sixes, the way he was running, taking those doubles, and he batted through 50 overs today. Yeah,
well, he must be an incredibly fit man as well. He was batting for that length of time and running between the wickets. I know he hit a lot of boundaries, but he still batted. He's batted for over 3 hours, and he's still churning the runs out right in the last over. But a fantastic example of how to put together an innings in one-day cricket. You know, in the middle period, everyone thought, you know, they're going too slowly. Yeah. But because they had partnerships and they had wickets in hand, they could really launch at the West Indians in the back end of that game. And what a magnificent double 100. Yeah, incredible stuff. He'll, you know, something that Kiwi people and Martin Guptill will remember for the rest of his life.
Nikhil, yeah. Obviously brilliant innings. He was the anchor as far as the New Zealand batting goes. Brendan McCullum, remember, was out early on, and of course the pressure was on Martin Guptill to stay out there, to stay as long as possible and play a big knock, and he did that. He stayed through 50 overs and played brilliantly today.
It makes all the difference when you lose a couple of wickets early on. You know, you'd want to go out there and stitch a partnership, and Andrew and I have been speaking about this, especially in this particular World Cup. It's the new ball that threatens the opposition. You lose a couple of wickets early on. If you still continue to keep going for your shots, you lose another couple of wickets, you'll always be looking to play catch-up in the game. But once you stitch that little partnership, come the middle overs rather, you know, if you've got two set batsmen, batting in 30s and 40s, the power play, it'll make a world of a difference, no matter who the bowler is, and especially at this particular ground. You get used to the size of the ground as well. You know the kind of shots that you are going to be looking to play. Somebody like an Andrew Simon is probably just a chip shot into the stands. Forget about just clearing the rope, because it's only about what? Certain sides, 50 odd meters or 60 odd meters, that's not a lot. And guys bowling at speeds close to 140 kilometers an hour, all you got to do is just time that cricket ball. You don't need to throw the kitchen sink. But I guess fantastic batting display.
Fantastic.
But I guess a little bit of inexperience in the part of the West Indies captain Jason Holder. Not bringing his strike bowlers back on, trying to look to pick up a wicket.
Andrew, would you have wanted Jerome Taylor to come on early on? He had just bowled 4 overs initially. A lot of them were left. And in the middle, like Nikhil said, you know, the New Zealand had slowed down.
He hasn't finished his quota.
No, he's not in the team to do 1 ounce of batting, really. He's a strike bowler. And for me, that's a very strange decision. There's a couple, you know, but that one there sticks out like a sore thumb. He had to come back in that middle period and try and take a wicket, put some pressure on while they were just ticking things over, try and change gears, take some wickets in that middle period. Because as we've been talking about throughout this whole competition, if you can't take wickets in that middle period, if things don't go well at the start, you get launched at like the Kiwis launched.
Does that where inexperience comes in? Obviously, Jason Holder hasn't, you know, captained West Indies for very long. In a big tournament like this, a quarter-final, he got his strategies wrong out there.
They can't use that as an excuse to West Indies. They've got 3 ex-captains out there on the field. Surely they can communicate together and get on and work out what's the best way to make up their day and structure their bowling attack. very strange that their best strike bowler doesn't bowl 10 overs in this game.
Let's go across to Boria, who's joining us from Australia as well. Boria, obviously we are talking about this brilliant innings by Martin Guptill, but do you feel for the West Indian bowlers? Like Nikhil mentioned, it is a fast outfield, the boundaries are small, he played a blinder of an innings, but you feel for the West Indies bowlers?
You know, if your fielders drop catches, how would you feel? I mean, there you feel bad for the bowlers. If your captain doesn't give you proper opportunities, like in this case with Jerome Taylor, I thought it was stupid of Jason Holder not to bowl his premier bowler 4 overs up front, and when Ross Taylor was going slow, that's when there is chance of putting pressure on Martin Guptill, because he's the one who has to enforce. You get Jerome Taylor back for a 3-over spell or a 2-over spell. You know, to sort of not bowl your best bowler for 10 overs is criminal. So there you feel for the bowlers. Having said that, don't take anything away from Martin Guptill. He played a blinder. He played a sensational knock. It was an incredible innings. And this game is very heavily sort of now, you know, sided for the batsman. That one extra fielder rule, the 2-ball rule means spinners don't get enough spin on the ball. So ICC needs to look at these rules at the end of this competition, because it's not a bowler-friendly game. Having said that, Martin Guptill was absolutely brilliant.
Martin Guptill batted for 50 overs and scored over 230 runs, and that is what has taken New Zealand to a huge total against West Indies in the 4th quarter-final of the World Cup. New Zealand have scored 393 runs for the loss of 6 wickets. Guptill was dropped early on by Marlon Samuels, and that proved to be too costly for the West Indies. Captain Brendan McCullum was not so lucky though, getting dismissed after making just 12 runs. Kane Williamson and Guptill then took the team to 89 when Williamson was dismissed by Andre Russell for 33. Martin Guptill then brought up his second ton of the tournament of 111 balls. He was well supported by Ross Taylor at the other end, who was out after scoring 42 runs. Corey Anderson made 15 while Grant Elliott contributed with 27 runs. But powered by the massive 100 from Martin Guptill, that has taken New Zealand for 393 runs, and that is what the West Indies need to chase to make it to the semi-finals of the 2015 Cricket World Cup. Well, I will go across to my guests again. Nikhil, you wanted to say something before we went into the break.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Andrew on a quick point that he made a fantastic point during the middle overs with the 5th fielder coming into the 30-yard circle. How important it's become for the bowlers, especially if you're playing 5 frontline bowlers. Those 10 overs, all you got to do is go out there and look to take wickets. Otherwise, somewhere somebody else is going to get nailed.
Yeah, you're right. You've got to find that. You've got to find the balance of attacking with your right field. So, for me, what it's all about is it's about how the bowler actually pulls this off. His accuracy's got to be there, because obviously the opening batsmen are going to attack if they get a bad ball. So it's all about their execution. And then once you've got a team under pressure, you've got to keep going. I think you've got to keep going and push for that next wicket. You can't hang back for a split second. You've got to be ruthless and try and draw another mistake out of the opposition, so you bring the middle order into the game a lot earlier. Otherwise, you're going to see what happens. You get launched at like that, and then, you know, Martin Guptill's played the innings of his life there, and they couldn't stop him.
So in that middle period, during the power plays, it is so very important to try and pick up a wicket just before the power play start, because you'd want 2 fresh new batsmen come in close to about the 35th over, because if they're about, say, batting on 40, you'll get launched.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you get to the position where they're just batting completely fearlessly. They don't care if they get out, you know. So they're playing with so much freedom. They're clear in their head, and you saw how cleanly Guptill hit the ball. He was just fearless, and he got them into that position by being that real steadying influence at the start. He invested some time, and he's batted throughout the innings, and what an amazing innings. Fantastic stuff.
Obviously an amazing innings by Guptill. Let's go across to Boria as well, who's still with us from Australia. Boria, we have to talk about the way Guptill paced his innings. You know, he got to his 100 of, 110 deliveries, and after that, he just smashed the ball. He was there, he was hitting his boundaries, his sixes, the clean hitting that he did, and it took him, some 160-odd balls to then reach to 230.
Absolutely. So basically, you're talking about 137 runs off 50 balls. that's what he got. So 50 balls, 137 at the strike rate of 300. Andrew and Nikhil was spot on. You've got to pick wickets at the top of the order and in the middle overs, because if you don't, also in the batting power play, because the batsman will take a bit of a risk and you've got to pick wickets. Why India has done so well, India has not lost a single wicket in the batting power play in most of the games. That's why you see where India is. Martin Guptill obviously played the innings of his life. Having said that, if you decode that, if you deconstruct that, there were many mistakes by the West Indians. Jerome Taylor 1, Marlon Samuels 2. Even at the top of the order, they were a bit defensive. When Ross Taylor was going for 4 and over, 5 and over, you suddenly get Marlon Samuels to bowl 3-4 overs. There is no point. You've got your premier bowlers up there. You put pressure, 2 wickets down, pick a couple more there. Kane Williamson, form batsman gone. Get Ross Taylor and then Grant Elliott on. These people have not got that much batting. So go for the kill, which I don't think Jason Holder did. He held back and got pummeled, and I think this match is over.
This match is over, Boria, obviously, but you have to talk about the importance of the partnerships as well. You said that Kane Williamson was out and Guptill obviously batted those 50 overs, but he was supported in those 50 overs as well. And the fact that New Zealand were able to build those partnerships, the fact that Guptill did get support from Ross Taylor, he did get support from Kane Williamson up there, obviously helped New Zealand post this massive 393.
Absolutely. There is no question. Having said that, as I keep saying, there are 2 teams competing here, Radhika. One team is playing brilliant cricket in New Zealand with Martin Guptill there. What is the West Indies doing? Are you holding back? Are you sort of waiting for something to happen, or will you make something happen? I don't think see what Michael Clarke did yesterday. I think that is a lesson in captaincy. Each time there was a wicket, Michael Clarke gets 2 slip fielders in, goes for the attack. 213 Pakistan done with. Today, Jason Holder, 1 quick wicket of Brendan McCullum, put pressure, get 2 more, get into that middle order. I think it's a contrast, Michael Clarke and Jason Holder, and you will know where West Indies is and where Australia is.
That's a very important point, Andrew, that Boria is making, and that you also said that it was important to get those wickets in the middle. But what Holder did was get Marlon Samuels, and what he was trying to do was contain the runs. Even when Ross Taylor was out there, wasn't batting, really free-flowing cricket. So obviously he got a lot of things wrong out there.
Yeah, and pressure does funny things to a man, a young captain trying to find his way with his captaincy. He's made a few errors there today, no doubt. Hopefully he can learn from them. But I don't think we should take anything away from New Zealand. They've put together a magnificent 50 overs of batting there. But as I said, the boys were able to bat around Guptill, the other boys, and that's why they were so potent. They just kept coming, because they didn't take those early wickets and they couldn't restrict and choke them into making mistakes in that middle period.
It is a fast outfield, it is a small boundary, as everybody said. Do you think there is a chance that West Indies can go out there and obviously make those 393 runs?
I have been involved in a game of cricket where
where that happened.
Team chased over 400 runs and won. So
we didn't bring it up.
Yeah, Australia played South Africa and they chased down 430 at the Wanderers in Joburg. So it's not an impossible task. But
there's a lot of pressure as well involved here. It's a World Cup quarter-final.
That's right. So if you lose, you're out. This isn't just a one-day international. This is the World Cup. So, look, I'm going to say no. But if it happens, it'll be a hell of a game of cricket to watch.
And I think McCullum, he's far too experienced. I don't think he's going to make the same sort of mistakes like Jason Holder did. When Guptill was going, you had a little partnership with Elliott when he got 27 or 28 of just 15. Now you got somebody batting at 160, 170. The lines and the lengths are, for a bowler, he's going to be trying doing something different. But when Elliott came to bat, it's the same thing. They were trying the Yorkers and they kept missing, and everything was in his zone. For any new batsman, Radhika, anything in that zone or in that arc on those small grounds is going to disappear. So I guess that's the kind of mistakes that the West Indies bowlers kept on repeating. And Holder didn't go up to the bowlers and try and had a word with them.
So he didn't do that. The captain probably didn't do his job. Boria, you've said 99%. It's probably New Zealand making it to the semi-finals of the 2015 World Cup. Any chance you feel the West Indies can change those?
Very, very little. Maybe the 0.1% you have got to say, quoting CLR James, what do they know of cricket who only cricket know? Having said that, 6 balls and over, you say I will hit 2 balls and the rest of the 4 I can still bat out. 2 balls for 4 gets you 8 runs. It's very simple to say, Radhika. 150 from Chris Gayle, 150 from Marlon Samuels, your only chance.
Boria, obviously, you know, the way New Zealand have played today, and now we are down to the last four, the quarter that is going to play the quarterfinals. Big challenge out there, New Zealand making themselves as big favourites going there.
No question. We are talking about an India-Australia semi-final being the match of the World Cup. Think about South Africa, New Zealand. Either A.B. de Villiers or Brendan McCullum goes out. Either Martin Guptill or Hashim Amla goes out. Dale Steyn versus Trent Bolt. Moni Mokel versus Tim Southee. Heck of a match that is. You know, and in New Zealand, in their home soil, if New Zealand win that one, who knows? I mean, two mouth-watering World Cup semi-finals in prospect. I'm assuming West Indies will lose, but that's what it is looking like. New Zealand, South Africa, it will be no less a contest than India versus Australia.
Rather, the top 4 teams of the World Cup have made it to the semi-final, which is a good thing. The top 4 sides of the World Cup, you know, they played some outstanding cricket right through the World Cup, and no real surprises.
No. Also, the fact that the quarterfinals did end up being Boria one-sided, we do not expect that in the semi-finals with the top 4 teams making. So obviously, that also equation works out really well.
Correct. Here in Sydney, you know, already it's a sellout. The moment I landed in Sydney, everybody's talking one language, India, Australia. You know, a friend of mine, former India hockey coach, Michael Nobbs, picks me up at the airport, and the first thing he says, it's a sellout, can you give me a ticket? You know, it's a clamour. And in New Zealand, if you see the crowd there today, it's a sellout. This is what you want to see. Cricket at its absolute best, all sold, fans enjoying themselves from all parts of the world, making the Cricket World Cup their own. Two cracker. One thing I'm disappointed by, not a single quarter-final lived up to the billing. All one-sided games in the end. You don't want to see that in the semi-final.
Chris Gayle really needs to show up if the West Indies plan to make it to the semi-finals of the 2015 World Cup. They've got a massive mountain of 393 to climb. And Andrew, Chris Gayle has played brilliantly, you know. He's one of those players. You've talked about those small boundaries. You've spoken about those quick outfields. So if there's somebody who can do it for the West Indies today, it has to be Chris Gayle.
It has to be. I mean, in this competition, it's you know, it's been relatively easy to beat up the minnow sides, but we're down to business end, and this is where your best players have got to do the bulk of the work. And he's their best batsman, so he's got to come out. He's got to be sensible, but he's got to be smart in the way he attacks today. If the West Indies lose 3 wickets in the first 10 overs, they're never going to give themselves a chance to chase this total down. So what they need to do is still be circumspect for the first 5 overs or so. They've got to trust themselves to do to New Zealand what New Zealand have done to them. If they've got wickets for the back end of this game, and Chris is still there and Samuels is going, you know, you never know what you can do.
Boria, you did mention that it was a pool game in which Chris Gayle had scored that double 100, but nonetheless he did that. But he's coming back from an injury, a back problem. That is why he didn't play the last match. You feel Chris Gayle has it in him to probably deliver today?
He has it in him, Radhika, but I'm disappointed with Chris Gayle. Andrew used a word there which I think sums it up brilliantly, sensible. You know, you don't do 215 against a minnow and then get out for 0, for 10, for 20 against bigger teams. So the way he batted against India was ridiculous. He was going to slog every ball. He had no patience. He did not want to get in. Now, if he tries that against Tim Southee and Trent Bolt, he will get out. Now, Chris Gayle needs to realize he's their premier batsman and needs to take responsibility, which is what is disappointing in Chris Gayle. We keep talking about which Pakistan will come out to bat, which Chris Gayle will come out today. Temperamental, mercurial, mad Chris Gayle, more responsible Chris Gayle. If the more responsible Chris Gayle comes out, there'll be a contest, otherwise it'll be a no contest.
Nikhil, a very important point that Boria's mentioned out there, you know, it's the way the West Indies have played throughout the tournament. They have been as unpredictable as, say, Pakistan, and Chris Gayle has been one of them. But he's not the only batsman. You've got Samuels out there. There have been batsmen out there in the lineup who've performed. But if Chris Gayle doesn't fire, does the rest of the lineup match up for you to reach that score of 393?
No, I don't think so. Because at the end of the day, Chris Gayle has got to be one person that everybody else would have to bat around. You know, if he gets a big enough 100, Marlon Samuels will have to chip in. The other guys, you know, Lendl Simmons has also got 100 to his name, but we haven't seen him do what these guys have done in international cricket. Yes, he can go out there and play a small enough part, but at the end of the day, the bulk of the score has got to be got from one of your openers, because he'll have to bat the full 50 overs. And, you know, Boria and Andrew talking about sensible, I think the mantra is the same. For Chris Gayle or any of the openers, the New Zealand boys are going to get that ball to swing. Respect the new ball swinging. Do not lose a wicket, or don't go after the new ball, you know, straight away in the first 10 overs. After that, you know, 40 overs, the ground is not that big enough. 397, you know, it's a huge total on board. But if you get in and you start to play your shots, You will get enough boundaries, I'll tell you that, Radhika, and put some pressure on the New Zealand side. Don't give up in the first 10 overs.
Boria, obviously, New Zealand will be led by Tim Southee and Trent Boult. Brilliant performances they've had in this World Cup so far. Can the West Indian batsmen stand in front of those two brilliant pacers?
Add the fielding big time. There's, Brendan McCullum, Kane Williamson, Martin Guptill, Grant Elliott. These people will throw themselves like, flying saucers out there. I mean, they'll stop everything. It'll be a 25-30 run extra to the 393. So West Indies has a mountain to climb. Having said that, strange things happen in cricket. But do you want it to happen? That's question number one for the West Indies. If you believe it can happen, then it'll be a different story. And if you just want to come out there and start slogging, it'll be 4 down in 10 overs and match over. I want to see a cricket contest because Chris Gayle, Marlon Samuels, these guys are quality cricketers. Why don't they stand up for West Indies in a match that matters and not against rubbish sides? For once, Chris Gayle should take responsibility and say to himself, I've got it in me, let me do it. If he doesn't, then he doesn't deserve to be the star that we make him to be.
Chris Gayle probably doesn't deserve to be the star. Andrew, final comments from you as far as we are talking about this match is concerned. We've said it's a mountain to climb for the West Indies. Chris Gayle needs to show up. What is it that the New Zealand players need to do? Just bowl their perfect line and lengths, just be particular, because obviously they have this backing of a huge total behind them.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different factors we've talked about here this morning. But, the New Zealand quicks, they won't bowl 8 overs, their best 2 bowlers and things like this. But things that I suppose are controllable for the West Indies, they need to be sensible in those first few overs. There's 2 new balls, they need to, when they stop swinging, it's a different concept. While the ball's swinging, very difficult to go out there and just hit 4s and 6s without losing wickets. So they've just got to be sensible and, as I said before, trust themselves. Give themselves a chance to win this game. If they get bowled out for 160, they've probably damaged their reputation a bit as well. They need to have a real crack here today, be smart and have a real crack and take this game as deep as they can, and then you never know what you can do.
Nikhil, that's what Boria also said, that the quarterfinals have been disappointing because they've all been one-sided affairs, and that is what Andrew is saying. If we have, say, West Indies being bowled out for 160, 150 today, that is going to be very disappointing for the fans. Do you feel the West Indies can at least make a match out of it?
Well, I hope so. If they bat well for the first 10 overs, it can be a contest. But it's going to be very, very difficult. I don't think the New Zealand guys are going to make the same sort of mistakes like the West Indies in the field have done. So, in that regard, they'll have to literally play out of their skin. We know if Chris Gayle needs to go out there and bat for at least 40 overs, forget about the first 10 overs, whatever the score on the scoreboard. The rest of the 30 overs, Chris Gayle's got that sort of power. He will make a game of it, make no mistake about it. And if I can take just a few seconds to ask Boria a question.
Sure.
Boria, very briefly, you said that you wanted some tickets for the Sydney game. How many do you need?
Give me many. There are many people out here. We'll fly you to get some tickets,
Well,
that's a massive clap.
That was the point. You need to send a mail to Andrew and me so that we can organize the tickets there.
Sir, business class, sir, nothing less, sir.
Boria, everybody wants to come to Sydney, and everybody wants to see that, but what, we've got news from the middle as well. West Indies has started batting, and they've in fact lost their first wicket. So that's not the start, Boria, that the West Indies were looking at. That's not really the start.
Absolutely not. I mean, you want to just go out there and compete, for God's sake. Have pride. We talk about the West Indies of the 1950s and 60s, the Worrells and the Walcotts and the Weeks, and then the 80s, the Lloyd team, of the best in the world of all time. And this West Indies, it's no better than a minnow, for God's sake. I mean, Ireland thrashes them. They qualify by the scrape of the team. You want a cricket contest out there. World Cup quarterfinals have not lived up to the billing. I really hope the semi-finals do.
Andrew Johnson, Charles dismissed. That's how the West Indies have started their chase. You feel, what is the score likely that the West Indies will reach at the way they're going?
Oh, look, I mean, at least it's not Chris Gayle. That's the only positive you can draw out of it. You don't want to lose a wicket in the first over in any game of cricket. When is a good time to lose a wicket? There isn't one, is there? So, not a great start, but Chris is still there. If he's got his head on today, he's got to take this game as deep as they can, and then throw themselves at the result at the end.
Final question to you, Boria. You talked about the atmosphere, you talked about the way Wellington was there behind New Zealand. Obviously, the pressure of being hosts, and in the quarterfinals didn't get to New Zealand, and they have seemed to have started off brilliantly as well in their bowling.
Now no more pressure of expectation. Now they'll enjoy themselves. They scored 393. Each time Trent Bolt and Tim Southee go back, he'll see 25,000 fans saying great job. So, you know, now the pressure will lift. The crowd will lift these players. So it's a different sort of pressure, Radhika. Now each time the West Indians take a long walk back to the pavilion, the pressure of expectations will kill them. So New Zealand will enjoy this to the T. Make no mistake about that.
So New Zealand will enjoy this. They've scored a massive 393 and they've started brilliantly as well. And West Indies have lost 1 wicket in their chase of 393. We need to slip into a quick break now, but stay tuned.